Hi, my name is Dr. Lauren Powell, and I'm a board-certified family medicine physician, also known as a culinary doctor. I believe that food is one of the most powerful drugs that we have. It is my mission and my life's purpose to teach people how to utilize food as medicine in order to prevent and cure disease. I believe cooking should be fun, I believe it should be delicious, and I believe that it should serve our bodies. I'm here with Anytime Fitness and the Movement Foundation to remind you just how accessible, inclusive, and affordable wellness can be. No matter your shape, your size, your gender, or your race, wellness is available to all of us. So welcome to my kitchen. I'm so glad for you to be here. I'm going to be cooking a delicious meal for you that I think you and your entire family will love. What I notice when I talk to patients is that nobody's eating enough vegetables. The recommendation is usually between 7 to 10 servings a day. And so that can be a little bit difficult unless you're putting in some effort. So I wanted to show you this healthy take on a classic recipe. So we're actually going to be making shrimp fried rice because who doesn't love Chinese food? But I want to show you just a super healthy take on it. So it's going to be 3 steps. So the first step, I'm going to teach you how to make the sauce. We're going to mix all our veggies, and then I'm going to take you to the stove and we'll throw everything together. All right, so let's go over these ingredients. First, I want to start with the ingredients that we'll be using for our sauce. I love this sauce. I actually keep a mason jar of it in my fridge at all times because it's such a versatile sauce that you can use as marinade, you can use it like we're using it today in a stir fry. So I love it. So let's go over all the ingredients and why I chose to use these particular ingredients. So the first one is I have some bone broth. Now I love bone broth. Anybody who follows me knows I'm always talking about bone broth. Bone broth is made with bones and connective tissue, and you basically simmer it in water and vinegar for like hours. The longer, the better. And so originally it was something that was used because we didn't want to kind of throw away, the leftover pieces that we didn't cook with. But obviously now we've learned just how powerful and how good it is for our health. So first of all, you're simmering bones. Think about all the stuff that's in bones. All the stuff that's in the bones is what comes out and is in your broth. So that's your calcium, your magnesium, your phosphorus. Another thing that's in bones that I'm sure many of us will respect and appreciate is collagen, the protein collagen. And we all love collagen. That's the, keep our skin beautiful and looking young. It's good for our joints, it's good for our hair. So a lot of people take collagen supplements and things like that. You get collagen right from the bone broth. So bone broth, super nutritious, so anti-inflammatory, antioxidants. It's just great. It's also really, really good for digestion. So sometimes I'll have patients who have a hard time digesting just very fibrous vegetables. And so what I'll encourage them to do is just to kind of simmer them just a little bit in bone broth. And bone broth actually aids in digestion, so it helps them digest the vegetables a little bit better. So I'm always cooking with bone broth. I'm not using stock or anything like that, bone broth. And you can make your own bone broth, or you can purchase it at the store. Super nutritious, super valuable thing to keep in your refrigerator. Okay, so that's part of our sauce. The other thing that's going to be part of our sauce is a little bit of sesame oil. We're making a stir fry, and you cannot have stir fry without sesame oil. Very unique to Asian dishes. It's such a flavorful oil. We're only using 2 teaspoons. A little bit goes a very long way. It's very flavorful. It's anti-inflammatory. It's antioxidant. It's also very good for our heart. So love me some sesame oil. Okay. We have to sweeten our sauce a little bit, so I'm going to use a little bit of honey. I want us to remember that even though honey is this beautiful natural thing, it still has sugar. So we still want to be mindful about how much honey we're using. But what I like about honey over just traditional plain sugar is that there's health benefits. Honey actually is good for HDL. HDL is that good cholesterol. We want our HDL to be as high as possible. So I love honey for that reason. All right, see what else we got here. So I have a little cornstarch. Now, you don't have to use cornstarch. Sometimes cornstarch is not something that people just have on hand. And so if you don't have it, it's perfectly okay. The reason that we're using it is because it helps thicken our sauce. So it's going to just make our sauce a little bit thicker. But again, completely optional. Don't worry if you don't have it in your cupboard. Next, 2 of my favorites, garlic. I've taken 4 cloves of garlic and I just minced them myself. I always ask and encourage people to mince your own garlic. I know it's so, you want to just grab that garlic that's already minced, but it's just been so diluted in water. It just doesn't taste as good as the fresh stuff. So get a garlic press and you can press your garlic, which makes mincing it a little bit easier. But garlic is just so good for us, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant. It's good for our blood pressure. So I always have patients who tell me they eat cloves of garlic. You don't have to eat your garlic. You can cook with it, but just as a way to help with their blood pressure. So love garlic. It's also a really good way to just build flavor without using salt. So my goal when I cook anything is, what can I do to build flavor that doesn't require a lot of salt? Because we can use some salt. I'm not saying don't use salt in your food. Your food definitely needs salt. But we want to be mindful of our salt use, right? Because excessive salt can lead to high blood pressure. So finding ways to build flavor that minimizes salt is also the goal. And so that's what this sauce is doing. It's building flavor naturally. All right, another fave of mine is ginger. Now here I just use some ginger paste. And you can use, if you had ginger root, ginger is a flower. You could mince up the ginger and use it that way. I actually love ginger so much. I brew ginger every night, and it's part of like my wellness routine. So I didn't have any ginger root left, so I used some ginger paste. What's good about the paste is it mixes really well. So in terms of the sauce, it'll just be a little bit easier to mix. But ginger is amazing. All of us know like ginger is great for your stomach. It's great if you're feeling nauseous at all. Antioxidant, of course, anti-inflammatory. Another good thing about ginger, it's good for your joints if you're someone that suffers with joint pain. Also, ginger is one of those things that protects the brain from aging that happens just with age. So damage that's done to our brain that just happens as we age, ginger is one of the things that protects our brain from that. So I consume ginger every single day in some form. I love ginger. Okay. And then of course, we cannot have a stir fry without soy sauce, right? We have sesame oil, you have to have soy sauce. Now I like to use low sodium soy sauce because again, we want to be mindful of our salt. We can always add more salt, but you cannot take the salt away. So just remember that. It's always best if you can buy, your broths, your bone broths, your stocks, low sodium. You can always add more, but you cannot take it away. So be mindful of that. So we have some soy sauce because you can't have a dish like this without soy sauce. All right, next, and this is an optional ingredient. You do not have to add it. This is purely if you want a little spice. My family loves a little spice, so I have some crushed red pepper flakes. As an alternative, you could also use sriracha. That would add some spice to it. Crushed red pepper is so good. Antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, of course. It's also really good for your metabolism. So who doesn't want that? And then it's also it's been known to kind of suppress hunger, which is good. So these are all the ingredients that we'll be using for our sauce. Again, I like to start with a mason jar because it's just, you're gonna have leftovers from this sauce, so it's just from this dish. So you'll be able to wrap that up and store it in your refrigerator. All right, so now the ingredients for our stir fry. We're gonna be making a kind of a cauliflower rice stir fry. So kind of like a play on a classic stir fry, but we're using cauliflower. Cauliflower is just popular right now. It's like the cool kid in school. It's like the cool kid in school right now. So I love cauliflower for so many reasons. First of all, it's so versatile. You can really do so many things with it. It kind of takes on the flavor of however you cook it. Cauliflower is one of those vegetables that has almost every vitamin and mineral that we need. And there's not a lot of vegetables that do that. Cauliflower also has choline in it. There's not a lot of vegetables that have choline. I think the only other one is broccoli. Choline is good for our liver, cleansing our liver. It's also good for our brain health as well. So it helps prevent things like Alzheimer's and dementia. So it's really good for our brain. So cauliflower, full of vitamins and minerals, so many vitamins and minerals, good for your liver, good for your brain. It's also very, what I would call nutrient dense. Nutrient dense means it's like getting a designer item on sale. It's like getting that Chanel bag for like Target price. Like that's what I mean when I say nutrient dense. So it means that you're getting so much nutrition for a very small amount of calories. That is called winning the game, because you want to get food that has lots of nutrition, but you don't want to have to expend a lot of calories to get it. So cauliflower is the winner. So we've got some cauliflower rice. We're going to be starting with some onions. Onions are good, antioxidant, anti-inflammatory. They're also antibacterial, also great for your heart. Also, what I like most is it's just another great way to build flavor without using salt. So I start so many of my dishes with just sauteing some onions and garlic and olive oil, because again, it's just going to create some wonderful, wonderful flavors without adding salt. All right, and so for our veggies, we have some spinach. Now I love spinach. I keep a bag of it in my refrigerator because you can use it for so many things, like your smoothies, your stir fries, your pastas. Again, very, very low in calorie. It's full of our B vitamins. That would be like your folate. It's really good in iron. And it's also really high in vitamin C. So oftentimes I'll have patients that tell me, Doc, I've been drinking orange juice every day to get my vitamin C so that my immune system stays healthy. And, that's great, but orange juice has a lot of sugar. And so it's not the same as eating an orange. So I always like to tell my patients, spinach has lots of vitamin C, it has just as much, and it has no sugar or very little sugar, and it's got fiber, and it's got lots of vitamins and minerals, and it's good for your digestion. So it's a really, really great alternative. Now listen, you don't have to use spinach. You can substitute this with any green you want. So if you have kale on hand, grab some kale. If you have bok choy on hand, grab some bok choy. You can switch it up. You can use multiple greens at the same time. No rules. So my rules with stir fry is there are no rules. You can literally do whatever you want. No rules. Now for our final ingredients. My favorite frozen mixed vegetable medley that I always keep on hand in the freezer. It's just a simple vegetable medley of corn, carrots, string beans. So we know everybody loves corn. It adds a little bit of sweetness. I always like people to be mindful of their corn because even though it's a vegetable, it's pretty high in carbs, but it's still delicious. It still has some added health benefits. It has some fiber, so it's still fine to use. Carrots, are great for our eyes. They have lots of vitamin A, so I love carrots. They also add a little bit of sweetness. That's going to be important. And then string beans. String beans are great. They're pretty high in fiber. They have a lot of plant compounds in them that are anti-inflammatory, so green beans are great to use. Again, a very versatile vegetable. These are just some of the vegetables I'm using. Again, you can use and sub out anything. So I also encourage people to eat vegetables seasonally. So around this time, if you wanted to do squash or zucchini, that would be wonderful. Cabbage would be great here. So many different things that you can do with it. And switch it up. Do it one way and then switch it up and do it a different way. And then another thing, so with the stir fry today, I'm going to be using some shrimp. So these are just a couple of shrimp that I threw in my air fryer. And I just cooked them for about 5 to 6 minutes. So I like to cook my meat ahead of my stir fry. That way, when it's time to cook it, I just throw everything in a pan and it's just ready to go. You can switch out your proteins. I think it's great to switch out your proteins. So sometimes I'll make chicken if my husband wants chicken. My husband also likes steak. So sometimes I'll get some nice lean steak and I'll chop that up and put it in it. You can do it veggie style and you can use things like tofu. You could also switch it and use some kind of beans. So no rules, of course, and you can feel free to swap things out. All right, so let's go ahead and build our sauce. I'm gonna go ahead and move the things out of the way that we won't need right at this moment. All right, so like I said, I'm gonna start with I'm just gonna build it in a mason jar. It just makes it so easy, again, because you can store it. You can put a lid on it. You can put some aluminum foil or saran wrap on top. So I have my half cup of no sodium bone broth, and literally we're just gonna dump and stir. It's gonna be super easy. So I'm gonna go ahead and add my sesame oil, 2 teaspoons. I've got my 2 tablespoons of honey. That's what we're going to use to sweeten our sauce. So you kind of want to have a fork on hand for your ingredients that want to stick to your container. All right, so we have our honey there. We've got our garlic, 3 to 4 cloves. We're going to be mincing our own garlic from now on. No more store-bought, already minced garlic. All right, we've got 2 tablespoons of ginger paste. Again, you could use fresh ginger and mince it yourself. I have a 1/3 cup of soy sauce, low sodium. It already smells good. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and add in red pepper flakes for me. And again, this is only if you want. If you want a little bit, you can put a little bit. If you want a lot, you can put a lot. If you don't want any, that's fine too. Okay, and then my cornstarch, which is my thickening agent. Easy, right? Now all you have to do is mix it together. Now she's ready to go. All right, so now I have my stove and my hot pan preheating. All we're going to use is a little bit of olive oil once that pan gets nice and hot. And literally, this is the easiest recipe. We're just going to literally dump and stir. So if you have frozen veggies, we'll want to start with those first. I always like to keep frozen veggies on hand. That way, if you need to make a quick meal, you have some. Same thing with the cauliflower rice. You can buy it fresh. The one I have is fresh, but you can also buy like a big bag of frozen cauliflower rice and then just keep that in the fridge as well. So my pan is nice and hot. Let's go ahead and get started cooking. I'm going to just do a little bit of drizzle of olive oil here. And I'm just going to saute these onions. So we want to saute them until they become nice and translucent, nice and fragrant. If you, again, are like a person who loves heat, you could add more red pepper flakes at this step, and it will just kind of, because the longer you cook red pepper flakes, just the more heat they add. So you can just go ahead and add them here if you like. Again, I add all kind of vegetables to this dish. It just really depends on what's in season. Cabbage is in season, so this would be great to have cabbage in it. Zucchini and squash, we're kind of near the end of zucchini squash season, but that's a great addition as well. All right, this is already nice and fragrant, so I'm going to go ahead and add in my veggie mixture. And this is just carrots, green beans, peas, and a little bit of corn. Remember, we want to add as many servings of vegetables as we can. Our goal is to get to 7 to 10 servings in a day. So if we can get, 3 to 4 per meal, that's ideal. All right, this is already smelling pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and just throw in my cauliflower rice now. Going to kind of get this well coated in my oil, and then I'll just do a little dash of salt and pepper. And then don't forget about your toppings. Remember, when you have shrimp fried rice, you always like to have either maybe some avocados on the side, you can have some fresh cilantro on top, you could do a fried egg on top or a scrambled egg. When I make this for my husband, I usually scramble 1 or 2 eggs on the side, and then I'll put that in there as well. All right, so while this is cooking, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of salt and pepper. I tend to like very coarse seasoning, so this is a coarse black pepper. I'm a texture person. I believe that sometimes I feel like texture is more important than flavor, because if you don't have great texture, you're not even going to get to the flavor. So I like coarse seasonings because they just add great texture. I'm going to add a little bit of my salt flakes, sea salt flakes. This recipe is very, very simple in terms of seasonings. Remember, we just made that wonderfully delicious sauce, so we don't need like a ton of seasonings here. Salt, pepper, sometimes I'll add a little cayenne pepper too. That adds flavor without adding a ton of heat. I'm a big fan of meals that can be made in one pan. I don't like to clean a whole bunch of things, so you could always cook your protein in the pan as well. Just make sure it's big enough. All right, so my cauliflower is basically cooked. I'm just going to go ahead and add my shrimp. And remember, we already cooked these as well. I'm a big fan of just cooking your protein in advance. It just makes it a little bit easier. And I don't cook them all the way because I know they're going to get a little bit more cooking once they hit my pan. All right, that looks good. So I just kind of make a little opening now for my fresh spinach. And you always want to do a ton of spinach because when you cook it, it shrivels up, and then you say, what happened to all my spinach? So you can just go ahead and saute that down. And again, you can use kale, you could use cabbage, you can use bok choy. And then we're literally done. The only thing we have to do is add our sauce. I'm going to turn my heat down a little bit. I wish you guys were in my kitchen and you could smell how delicious it smells, but I know you're going to make it because you saw how easy this was, and so you'll be able to smell how delicious it is too. All right, let's go ahead and add our sauce, and you add as much sauce as you want, so it's to your desired sauciness. My husband likes very, very saucy food. I'm less saucy, so I do kind of like a in the middle. And remember, we can always add more sauce. You can't really take sauce away. So I always say, you know, start small and then slowly add until it's kind of like the consistency that you like. So it's all ready. That fresh ginger, the fresh garlic just creates the most wonderful smell. It's smelling up my entire kitchen. And you guys saw how easy that was. That literally took us maybe 15 minutes. I think the longest part is chopping vegetables. Other than that, it's a pretty simple recipe. And now we have leftover marinade that we could use for another dish. Okay, friends, so she's perfect. She's ready to go. This is a great meal to prep in advance. Dinner's ready, lunch is ready. And I can't wait for you to try it. Here's our plate. Now, I like to add fresh avocado to my dish. Avocados are great because, you know, they're full of our healthy fats. So I'm just going to slice it here. You guys know, you know when your avocado is ripe if you can, you know, twist and it comes off very easily. And we'll just kind of remove our seed here. And we'll just slice this guy on here. You can also add some fresh lime juice if you wanted to add that on top of your avocado. If you wanted your dish a little more saucy, you could still add more sauce at this time. I'm going to go ahead and add in a couple of more red pepper flakes on top to garnish. And here you go. So this is a very heart-healthy meal. This is a very, if you are someone who struggles with your blood sugars, this is a great meal because, again, we've eliminated a lot of the carbs that you would typically see with using general rice. This is good. It's full of anti-inflammatory foods. We have our bone broth that I really use in almost everything that I make, but our base was made out of bone broth, which is good for your GI tract. Garlic and turmeric, we know, are antioxidant, they're anti-inflammatory, they're antiviral, so they're great foods to also incorporate. Spinach is great. I love to incorporate spinach because they include tons of B vitamins and iron. So I love my spinach. And then shrimp is a great, easy, quick protein. Again, you could use chicken, you could use tofu, you could complete this, you know, all veggies and, you know, substitute mushrooms, which will kind of give you that umami or meaty flavor. Or you could use steak if you're into that. So it's super diverse. And what I also like about it is you could cook the meat separate, like I did in the beginning. And so say one person in the family likes chicken, say somebody else in the family likes shrimp. You could cook the chicken separate and the shrimp separate, and then when you make their plate, they can each have their protein of their choice. Okay, now for a moment of truth. Now we're going to taste. This is perfect. Every time, this meal never lets me down. Ooh, I went a little heavy on the red peppers, but it is delicious. It's really so good. The perfect amount of crunch, perfect amount of sauciness. It's great. So a little bit about me. Like I said before, I'm a board-certified family medicine physician, and I really focus on using food to improve our health. And that all started when I was in residency. I was doing a 36-hour call got off call, was talking to my dad, and he was trying to talk to me to kind of keep me awake while I was driving. And I noticed his speech was a little bit different than it usually is. He later started slurring his speech, and I recognized at that time that my dad was having a stroke. So I was in Florida, my dad was in Michigan, so I, got him to the hospital. And what I realized at that moment was my values about health and about what we can do to maintain our health really shifted. My dad was not a neglectful patient. He was going to the doctors every 3 months. He was taking his medications every morning and every evening, but something bad still happened to him. And the same was happening for me. I was taking care of patients in my office in the clinic, but then I was still admitting them to the hospital when they had strokes, when they had heart attacks, and when they had these other bad things happen. And so I thought to myself, if as a physician, we ask our patients to do something and they do it, but then bad things still happen, maybe we're not telling them all the things that they need to know. Maybe we're missing something. And so that's what really inspired me to kind of get to this root cause of disease, which for many diseases, many chronic diseases, is the food that we're putting in our body. It is our lifestyle. It's the way that we move or our lack of movement. It's how we manage our stress. And it's the foods that we're choosing to put in our bodies. And so that's when I started my journey into really teaching about food and about health. And I recognize that in our health system, it's not always set up in a way that allows us to really give the patients all the tools that they need in order to be healthy. And so that's kind of where I developed my own business and kind of take people beyond the doctor's office and into their kitchen, which is where I believe real health starts. And so I do that in a variety of ways. One way that I love so much is my monthly membership. It's called Cooking Queens. And that's because I believe all women have a little bit of queen in them. And so what we do there is we talk about all things health and food related. All the conversations that I don't have the time to talk about in the doctor's office, I'm talking to them there. And so we talk about heart health, we talk about diabetes and food, we talk about anti-inflammatory foods, we talk about aging in food, we talk about mental health in food. I bring in tons of guest experts, some of my super friends. And so we're just constantly learning. And then once a month we get together and we do a virtual cooking class. And so my queens get the grocery list 1 week before so that they can grocery shop and prep. And then we get together and we cook and we make delicious foods. We incorporate the principles we've been learning all month. And then they get to serve it to their family and their families love it. And we have little jokes about how we got our kids and our husbands to eat things that they didn't know they were eating. And so it's really a great time. Once a month we get together virtually and we do a virtual workout. So we get our butts kicked for 30 minutes and that's always great. And it more than anything, it's community. And I think now more than ever, our concept of what community is has changed so much. And so just to connect virtually with people who are passionate about living healthier and making better decisions and encouraging one another and sharing recipes, it really is a really, really great time. So if you'd like to learn more about that, stop by my website at www.drlaurenpowell.com. That's DRLAURENPOWELL. And just click on the membership tab and you can learn all about that. But I would love to cook with you. I'd love to see you in your kitchen and I'd love you to come back into my kitchen.